That is us. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning on a sunny Sunday morning.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm absolutely delighted. It might be sunny, Laura, but it's freezing.
Well, we
It's
are.
Baltic out there.
We're hardy creatures as Scots, though, aren't
I
we?
think we are. Although you can't see, I've got my dressing gown over my leg.
I know I've got like fluffy jammies down here as well, so it's all good. So, Theresa, you are a complete, and I was saying to you before we went live, like I'm such a massive fan. You're like a multi-talented superwoman because you are a broadcaster of 25 years, a podcaster, you've got your own business, you're a gardener, and you're also an author. Wow.
Yes. It sounds quite impressive when you compress it all into one sentence, but
It is impressive.
I don't do them all at once. And I just keep reinventing myself. So as well as the gardening, I also do floristry now. I did train many years ago. I didn't just decide to do it, but thank you. I don't feel like a superwoman, certainly not on a Sunday morning, but that's really kind to say.
Well, I can tell you right now, you absolutely are. And we'll talk about willow and hair flowers later on because I see that in the group a lot and I absolutely love what you do there as well. So,
but sorry, can I say, I want to, excuse me for interrupting, and it's really nice that I'm a superwoman, and I know that you're doing this from your daughter's bedroom just now because you told me you got the gorgeous Disney castle behind you. I don't have any children, and I've never had children. I didn't have them, and I thought, no, they're not for me. So I don't have any children, and I'm in awe of people who have children and can also get dressed. I just cannot imagine, where do you find the time to do things? So, the time that everyone spends with their children, and quite rightly spending with their children and nurturing and that all-important job, I can take that time and I can faff about in the garden, and I can faff about in front of the laptop, and I can waste my time doing this, that, and the next thing. So it's the moms who are the superwomen. I really don't know how you do it.
Oh, no, well, thank you, but certainly not wasting your time, Theresa, because honestly, what you've created and what we're here to talk about today is, I mean, probably some of my favourite books. Like, and I couldn't put them down. So
I'm blushing.
We're going to get into it, honestly, because I feel as though this needs to be a BBC series. Seriously needs to be a BBC series. So, okay, right. Let's chat about the books first, and we'll come on to different other aspects of everything you do. So, firstly, have you always, obviously, you've been in broadcasting for 25 years. Has writing a book always been like a dream? Has it always been something that's kind of been in you?
Well, yes, I always loved storytelling. That was my thing. And I loved listening to stories, and I loved horror stories. And I was brought up in a family. My parents were Irish. So I was brought up in a family anyway. Well, I think it's the same. It's a kind of Celtic background. You just tell stories all the time, whether they're real or made up, and they all kind of merge. So by the time they've been told about 5 or 6 times what was the truth and what was just the made up bit, all just becomes this big story that's happened to someone's auntie's, granny's. So there was always great stories and always great ghost stories, and I loved listening to stories. And when you think of it, it's almost, I mean, we're not quite round the campfire, but it's almost just, it takes us back so many years. So you're not watching telly, you're just all sitting around telling stories. So I suppose writing a book is just it's me telling a story, but I'm trying to reach a bigger audience. Although with my first book, I think I had the bigger audience with the 5 family round. So my first book, my first novel, was the Lost Children in this trilogy. But I'd actually written that about 20 years ago.
Right, okay.
I just thought I could write a book, or I thought I had a book in me. I don't know, is this all sounding a bit kind of wanky and a bit...
Not at all.
So I wrote it and thought that's all you have to do. is write a book, and you know, spell check, sent it off. And I was lucky enough to get an agent quite quickly, and it was the same agent that at the time Denise Mina had. Now Denise Mina is a very successful Glasgow author, and she's brilliant. She's a brilliant writer, and she's multi-talented. She's truly multi-talented. But the book never, there was no bite, nothing happened. And then I forgot about it because I just thought, oh, you know, it's not for me. I just didn't have the staying power. And I had other things I was doing. I was working on things. So, yes, I suppose I always wanted to write. But when I'm rambling now, aren't I?
No, you're not.
When I was wee, authors were posh people, you know, like Enid Blyton or Tolkien or, you know, Alistair MacLean, or, you know, they were, you know, Ian Fleming, and they were posh people. And if you ever saw them being interviewed on it was usually Michael Parkinson. I was born in the 60s, so in the 70s, if ever an author was interviewed, they were so posh. So I didn't think it was a job that I could actually have. I mean, I'm from a working class background, and I just didn't think it was something that working class people did.
Okay.
Sound daft, but it's so I always wanted to write, and now that I'm in the middle of another book,
yes,
why bother?
No, that is good to hear. So The Lost Children, you wrote it about 20 years ago, and then how did you kind of like eventually go for it and launch it and bring it out? Thank goodness you did.
Well, as I say, I didn't get any bites, and it was funny because the main character is called Una O'Neill, and no spoilers, and I'm not spoiling it because she's in 3 of the books, but the first version, I'd killed Una off, and I thought this was a really clever thing to do, and I thought, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. I'll kill her off, and it'll be really Hitchcockian because she's the, you know, she's the main. One of my favourite films was Psycho, and the original version, and I thought, right, she's the main character. She's going to die, and that was a shock and a horror attack and things. So some of the feedback I was getting was, no, you don't want to kill her off, because it wasn't so much that it was a shock tactic. I wasn't experienced enough to see that when she get killed off, the book changed direction and it became someone else's story. So, and now I know exactly what they meant, but at the time, I didn't know anything about writing. I had no formal training. I just sort of sat down in front of a computer at the time, or a typewriter. So I then got a publisher come back and said, look, you can't kill her off. You've got to keep her alive. And I was such a terrible writer that I thought, oh shit, how am I going to do this? So I had her in a coma for the rest of the book. So it was terrible. It was absolutely awful. It was gobsmackingly bad. So I just hid it away, and the agent said, look, you might want to just, you know, rejig things. And I just said, oh, look, let's forget the whole thing. Let's pretend I never contacted you.
Right, okay.
Years later, about 15 years later, I was friendly with this guy that I met through a writing group.
Yeah.
He'd started a publishing company, and he said, look, can I have a look at your manuscript? And I said, oh, I don't know. He did young adult. It wasn't the kind of thing I did. So we batted it back and forth. And I won't get into how long it took to edit it, but it took months.
Okay.
Then he published it, but it was published under the name Penance.
Okay.
Our publisher came to me when they read it and said, we'd like to, you know, relaunch this. And I think he was kind of quite glad to get this off, because it wasn't quite in his, it wasn't his style. Yep. But I was really grateful that he got it off the ground and got a print version. So Penance was the original, but The Lost Children and Penance are basically the same book. So that was basically it. It was luck.
What a history of that! Just book one, even.
Oh,
like, what a journey!
Well, you probably realise that I talk far too much.
Not at all. Like, amazing, right? Okay, so book one was out, and then what was the process? Because a lot of the questions that came in from the community were on your writing process, you know, how long did it take you to write each book, and also the research that must have gone into each book, because there's a lot of like specialist topics that you discuss, you know, book 2.
Yes, I think,
Cool. And
well, I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist by trade. So you cut out slightly there. Can you just repeat the last wee bit?
yeah, sorry. It was so basically a lot of the questions that came in were in to do with, like, you know, the writing process, how long for each book, you know, how much research did you put into each, because there are real, I know in your acknowledgements at the end, you know, you do name like, I think ex-police officers and different things like that. So there really is real expert things that go into that. But what about book 2 and 3 then, Theresa? What was the kind of process for that?
Well, the process, just quickly backtracking, book 1, The Lost Children, is about the Magdalene institutions. Now, if you don't know about the Magdalene institutions, just Google them and they'll explain it far better than I can. And I was horrified to find out it's a kind of Irish institution for unmarried mothers, and there's all sorts of things going on. But I was horrified to find out that there was a Magdalene institution in Glasgow, and it only closed in 1958. Now, my siblings were born in the 50s, and they're quite a bit older than me, and so that was within their lifetime. I was really quite horrified, because it just seemed like such recent history. So when I started researching that and thought, actually, this would make a really good story, this would make a good book. So because my background is in journalism, I've been a radio journalist for so many years. By the time the first book actually came out properly, then I started writing a sequel using the same character, Una O'Neill, who's a journalist, coincidentally. And Keep Her Silent is about the tainted blood scandal, and that is involved, that again, Google tainted blood inquiry, and that really, it surrounds the people who were infected with HIV, hepatitis, terrible liver disease with contaminated blood products, and there was a lot of haemophiliacs involved, because they need the blood clotting agent. So I got friendly with a chap on Facebook, just you friends of a friend of a friend, and I messaged him. I said, his name's Bruce Norval, and I said, Bruce, what's your story? What is it? And he said, I was one of the guinea pigs for this tainted blood scandal. I'd been given contaminated blood many years ago. They were never told, and it took them decades. Now the inquiry is still ongoing, and this happened in the 70s and 80s. So it's only now that, again, Google it, and and I thought, do you know something? This deserves to be a story. So I went up and I interviewed Bruce, and I framed it around a crime novel. So that, again, that probably took about a year to write, but I don't sit and write full time. I don't, because I was working at the time. I was working at the BBC. So writing's weird. It comes in fits and starts. I try to be disciplined. I try to write every day, God, and then something happens. And then someone posts a video of a cat, and I'm like, oh, cat, oh, shiny things. So, but life, you've got to earn a living, and as lovely as it is writing, it's very difficult to make a living writing. The royalties are really pretty rubbish. So it took about a year. And then by that time I was with a new publisher. So that was a quicker process, because they were already saying, right, can we see this? We'll get this published. But the research into that, oh, crikey, because there was so much medical research, and I really wanted to get it right, because the victims, those affected by the tainted blood, they were so close to my heart. And I was in contact with Bruce. He was my main contact, and it was the only time I've ever given a book to someone other than my editor to okay it. And I said, look, can you read this first? I want to make sure I get it right. And he came back, and he actually said it's made me cry. He said, and gave me the thumb.
That's such lovely feedback.
So that was book 2. Loads of research, and nearly drove me bonkers. It much to drive me bonkers. I'm on the edge.
I can, because it's not a nice, like you're saying, it's a sorry state of affairs, isn't it? So
aye. Laura, that's the thing. My books, they're all based on real life crimes that no one will ever be convicted of. You think of Jimmy Savile, you think of the Magdalene institutions, when women were incarcerated for nothing really. The tainted blood, people have died, and because of this, and it's difficult. Many doctors didn't know that they were given contaminated blood, but someone somewhere knew. You know, there was and I don't want to put anyone off their breakfast or their lunch, but there was a Canadian company making the blood products, and they had sold it as the donors, because it's all you know, blood donations and plasma donations, and it was sold as coming from donors in Switzerland. So they packaged this, and then it emerged that they'd come from Russian corpses.
Honestly, like, I mean, that's like seeing a movie, like just a horror movie.
When Bruce was telling me this, I said, no, that can't have happened. And it did happen.
Yep.
I researched that, and the Canadian company involved, they could only be convicted of a civil thing for mislabeling. And I was like, really? And so no one was ever really convicted of that. And, you know, so my books all are based around real life crimes that very few people will be ever convicted of. But I've got to put a bit of humour into it, because I've got a bit of Glasgow banter, and I like a bit of cheek, and I like, you know, something happening. Because if it's all dark, I want to keep it, I want to keep a bit of, you need light and shade.
Yes, absolutely. And
it's entertainment as well. It's not, it's not a documentary. It's not a, you know, I'm not trying to preach to anyone. So it's entertainment, and I've got to kind of remember that.
Yeah. Oh, like, yeah, absolutely. You shine a light on such kind of like injustices, like global injustices, but you do so
thank you.
in a great way, because your characters they're so real. Like you feel as though you know them, like Davies, McVeigh, Una, like they're the people you'd go for a drink with, and they've got great interaction with each other. And we'll get to that. We'll get to talking about each character.
Mm-hmm.
What about book 3 then, Theresa? So that was based on Savile.
That was book 3 is The Quiet Ones, and that was based on abuse within a football boys club. And again, I didn't, we all know what happens. I didn't say, and I never ever wrote anything that was explicit. You would get a young teenage boy, go into a door of someone, and the door would close. That was there was nothing explicit. There was, the most explicit thing was that he was having a conversation, and you knew that someone was touching you. Yeah. I didn't want to make it salacious, because we know what happens. But that was such a strange thing. I recently got married in 2018, and when I had a third book, the book Keep Her Silent came out. We got married in Italy in September 2018, and Keep Her Silent came out in September. So it came out when we were on honeymoon, and I said to my husband, I said, I don't have another book in me. I don't, because I'd written the first 2 about real life crimes that no one's convicted of. I couldn't then just suddenly change and make stuff up. Well, a lot of it's made up, but I couldn't just, I needed a scandal. And I didn't want to do child abuse, and I didn't want to do the Westminster paedophile ring and thing, because it was just, but I get into a taxi, and the chap recognised me from the BBC, because he had a BBC account, and he said, oh, I've picked you up before, chat. And he said, you got any more books coming out? So he obviously knew me. And I said, well, I'm just, those are starting to write one. And he said, I'll give you a story. And any author will tell you, your heart kind of sinks, because it's like,
I can imagine.
I don't want to use it. And people are always coming up and going, I've got a great story. You know, I don't need ideas. My head is bursting with ideas. I need an assistant inside my head to, you know, formulate all my ideas. I need someone to write the book for me. But he said, I was the original whistleblower of the Celtic Boys Club scandal, him and Alan Brazil. So I said, what's your name?
Yeah.
I was Googling him throughout the journey, and it turned out, it came up, he was the original whistleblower, and he did go to court, and the chap who only got 2 years, but then he was subsequently, the guy was I don't want to mention names, because
I know.
Disclaimer on this, it's not about that. So anyway, I ended up getting pally with him, and he gave me his story, and it's not about him, but I used his experiences to do another big scandal that nobody really, because these people don't work in a vacuum. They never, these high profile figures never ever work in a vacuum. They never operate alone. They never abuse alone. They're facilitated, they're enabled by, whether it's their assistant, whether it's somebody else on the board, whether it's someone else that knows and turns a blind eye, if it's their pals. They never work alone. Someone somewhere always knows. So it was more about the abuse of power.
Yeah.
So that was me.
Wow, right, okay, amazing. So obviously, like we were mentioning just before about the love of the characters, so how did you sort of take inspiration for each character? Like, did you base it on like maybe people that you know, or is it a mixture? Because they're so lifelike. You feel like you know them.
Well, that's really, really kind, Laura. Thank you so much. And Una, who's the main character, I wanted to make her a journalist. I didn't want to make her a policewoman because she had to operate outside the boundaries. I didn't want to write a police procedural because I don't know enough about police procedurals. I think ex-policemen write really, really good police procedurals, and you've got to make sure everything is in. You've got to make sure it's right. So I wanted a character that kind of wrote out, that kind of worked outside the kind of confines of the legal system. And I just thought, well, I'm a journalist, so she's kind of issue-based in me a wee bit. She sort of says things that I wish I'd said, but when someone insults you and then 10 minutes later you're like,
you should have said this.
That's what's a good thing about Messenger, isn't it? You can take your time and go, but weirdly enough, I think she's really nice. I really like her.
Really like Una.
She's very flawed. She drinks too much. Not me. Not anymore. She's got a kind of chaotic life. But the amount of people that said to me, "Oh, I don't like her."
Oh, I like her. She's so human.
She drinks too much. And then I realised things are getting a bit better now, but you can't write female characters that are flawed without people jumping on you. Now you think of the amount of male characters who are really flawed. They drink too much, they womanize, they beat people up, they do all sorts of things, they take drugs. Oh yeah, he's great.
The hero.
A woman does it. And it's like, oh no, I didn't like her. She was, and then someone else had messaged me. So it was weird. It was 50, well, not 50-50, about 60% of people said, I love Una.
Yeah.
And I really took it to heart. She was based on.
Oh, it's surprising.
And some people would say, oh, she's professional, she's top of her game, but she's got a really chaotic life, or she got pregnant accidentally. A professional woman would never allow that to happen.
Oh, wow.
Really?
That says more about your understanding than...
I thought, really? Do you think because you're good at your job, you don't have a chaotic life?
I know.
People who are top lawyers or top broadcasters, or... and I thought, shit, is that really still how we're viewing women? This vision of perfection, and only people that are running around and look chaotic. And that really, but what it did was it kind of got my hackles up.
Okay.
Done more. Because I thought, she's got a chaotic life.
Yep.
She drinks too much. She's shite at relationships. She has fights with her mum, but then she bites her tongue and she feels absolutely awful. But she's got that Glasgow Irish thing. Her mum's Irish, she's Glaswegian. They fight. 2 minutes later, it's forgotten about. And people were saying, oh, you'd never speak to your mother like that. And I'm like, oh, goodness.
Oh, I know. You just... But I think...
and that's the one thing. So she kind of came from me. The police personnel, the policeman, Davis, he was dead stuffy to start with. And back at my first draft, I didn't like him. So he's grown more. And I kind of like him and McVeigh. They're not really based on anyone in particular, but being a journalist, I was lucky enough to have caught really, really good contacts in the police and quite high up in the police.
Yeah.
So I would kind of back and forth, and I wanted to make sure, and that's another thing, someone came and would say to me, oh, they'd never say such and such. And I said, well, yeah, they would. That's the terminology. That's what they would call each other. They would, you don't call your commanding officer by name. You would call them can't remember, I was at boss or governor or you know, whatever. And I made sure I checked and double checked and double checked and double checked. And so they're kind of grown. And my niece, there's one of the policewomen, she's later in it, she comes in, Toria Law.
Yes.
My niece is Victoria Law and we call her Toria. And physically, she's like her.
Okay, brilliant.
Sometimes I'm doing things, and because I'm so fond of Victoria, and I want to keep her like a nice character, and then because I wanted to kill her off, and I said, "You're not killing off my daughter, fucking off." Right.
Oh, brilliant.
We're just based, it's just an amalgamation of people, you know, and sometimes if someone pisses me off, I thought, right, you're getting it. I'm going to make sure people know it's you as well, right?
Love it. Honestly, I love it. And I have to say, like, there was real comedic moments in it, and especially with Davis and McVeigh, and then Una as well. But McVeigh, I mean, he was like a comedian. See something
Do you
like
know,
that.
I'm so glad you said that, because I've really taken to McVeigh, and I want his own series. And if anyone has ever watched Taggart, or I mean, he's on lots of things. Colin McCready, the actor with the red hair,
Yes,
that's my McVeigh.
yes.
And I messaged Colin on Twitter and I said, "You're in my book," and I went to send him a copy. So that's who I see as McVeigh, is Colin McCready. So actually, I should send him a wee copy and say, "What do you think?" He might be offended, I don't know.
Loved that, absolutely loved that character. And like you said with Davis, in the first book, I was like, "Oh God, this guy's a dick," and then actually at the very
But
end,
he was a dick, wasn't he?
I love him. I love him.
He's grown.
Yeah, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but the way that you closed that was perfection.
But I wanted McVeigh, who's Davis's sidekick in the police. I wanted to make him slightly comedic, but really, really sharp.
Oh,
You know what? You've got to kind of go through a few layers. I didn't want him just to be a comic character. I wanted to make him, he's as sharp as a tack.
Oh yeah, he saw through people, and there was a few. I think there was a moment in the last book. They went to a gangster's house or something, and he'd mentioned something about the architecture.
Yeah.
Or the way that it said it, and I thought, this guy is an actual. He's so good. He's fearless.
So I like him because he's a bit kind of out there, but and there's a thing, is he having a wee dalliance with Toria?
Yeah, well, there was
not sure.
Letter, wasn't there?
But we're not sure. But would he be barking up the wrong tree, or would she be barking up the wrong tree, because he might have a love interest that would surprise us all?
Oh,
so no more.
Could there be a wee offshoot then?
Might be.
Oh, amazing.
It's writers are very much at the kind of mercy of their publishers.
Okay.
So far down the food chain, you've no idea. It's like the publishers are God, then you've got the agents, and then you've got all sorts of different people, blah, 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 right down. You go, oh, there's the writer. So
ultimately, the writer is the talent. The writer is the cog that holds everything together. It's crazy. But
yes, I'd love to do an offshoot with McVeigh. And see if anyone is a budding writer out there, and anyone's writing a book. The best bit of advice is, don't give a character a name like Davis, because it's really hard to put Davis's, if it's Davis's shoes or Davis's car. So don't end anyone on a, James or Davis or anything like that. And I wish to God I'd called him something like McDonald.
Oh,
yes. Every single time I write his, every time I start another book, I've got to go back to an old book to find out, is it I before the E? I can't remember how I spelled McVeigh.
That is absolutely brilliant.
And I'm terrible, I'm hopeless. And then my publisher, my last book, she sent it back. She said, like, yeah, it's good, but you've got 4 characters called James. She says, and one of them's a woman called Jamie. And I thought, oh shit. Because I know that writers are always really, other writers always appear really clever to me, and they're like, yes, this character inspiration and the name just, and I'm like, oh, everyone's just James. until I find someone better. So it's with names. Think of your names very carefully if you're going to have a series, because it'll absolutely plague you.
Such a good tip. Like, I would never have thought of that. And that, like you say, when a name ends with an S, making the possessive, that is a head scratcher. So yes, 100%. That is such a good tip.
You've explained it far better than me. Saying the possessive, but possessive.
Not at all. Honestly, like, 'cause I often think when I'm writing anything, I think, now what is that? And I probably always get it wrong. So right, okay, amazing. So, as I said, Theresa, I can 100% see this as a BBC series, and I really
Thank you.
that happens. Who would you have? Obviously, you mentioned who would you have play McVeigh. Who would you have play the other leading roles?
Gosh, do you know what? I don't know. It's weird because I can see Una in my head. I know who she looks like.
Yeah.
Una O'Neill was Charlie Chaplin's last wife.
Okay.
Spelling, but that's where I got the name from. And there's a brilliant picture of her, and she's got long. There's a few pictures. There's lots of pictures, but there's a great one. And I've got it on my Twitter feed, and she's got her hands in her hips, and she's got long dark hair, and she's just kind of looking out into the middle distance. And I'm thinking, if only she was back here.
Okay.
So one of the chaplains, like, you know, because I know that, you know, I think Geraldine Chaplin is her daughter, and then she would be too old. So if there was a chaplain that could play Una, oh my God, I'd be just absolutely delighted. I see her as a kind of Kelly MacDonald type.
Okay.
She's, you know, I don't know, because I'm a bit rubbish with actors. I don't really know very many actors. I spend too much time writing.
I know you're so busy, like, I'm not surprised.
So who would I get? And Davis, I need someone that was kind of on the right side of good looking, but quite ordinary.
I know what you mean. Dead masculine.
I don't know, actually. Oh, crikey. I don't know.
We can even think about that.
Put it out there.
I
don't know.
No, do you know what? That's.
But I do get asked that a lot, and I never know, so I should actually start researching and finding out. So apart from Colin McCready, Colin, you're booked.
Well, he would be spot on, though, I have to say.
Right, wouldn't he?
Spot on. So, you have a fantastic podcast which focuses on interviewing crime writers.
Yes.
So crime is your passion genre.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah, it's just, so who do you have other writers or Scottish writers that like inspire you? Because you've interviewed some real great writers.
Yes, I do. Right. As I say, Denise Mina was the first Glasgow crime writer that I read, and she really inspired me, because I thought, oh, actually, her main character wasn't a superwoman. Now, there's nothing wrong with the Patricia Cornwell superwoman, you know, and they're flying helicopters and high kicking doors down, but I just can't write because that's not who my characters are, and I really admire writers that can do that, because and I think, oh no, I'm kind of a bit more clumsy, and my characters, you know, like Una kicked someone in the shin and ran away. That was her, you know.
Real life, though.
So when I read Denise Mina, I thought, oh, hang on. She's got an ordinary character. Her character had mental health issues. Her character had problems. This was many years ago. And she showed a side of Glasgow that I thought, I can identify with that. I can identify with that Glasgow. And I was just on the brink of writing. So that pushed me into writing. So I find her very inspirational. Douglas Skelton is a Scottish writer. Douglas, to my opinion, he's a brilliant writer. He's such a good writer, but I don't think he gets the plaudits that he should. I don't know. He's well known. He's written loads of books. He was a true crime writer. First of all, he's an ex-journalist, and I message Douglas all the time. Whenever I'm stuck, we just constantly, you know, Douglas, it's me, are you free for a chat? And I'll go, no. I'll go, right, good. Can you help me with this? So he's very good. Oh, crikey, too many to mention. Denzel Myrick, he's been very good and he's been really, really helpful. And it's lovely. All the Scottish crime writers, it's like a nice wee kind of club. They're all nice. Carol Ramsey, Michael Malone, Christopher Brookmeyer. I've probably left lots of people out and I'm really bad now, but the podcast is the Tartan Noir Show.
Yes, I'm looking forward to tuning into that.
It's free, log on, listen, series 1 and series 2, but it's actually produced by Janice Forsyth and her team.
Okay.
You'll know Janice in the BBC, but it's not a BBC production. And she came to me and she said, "Do you fancy presenting this podcast?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, get to interview crime writers." And so it was such a joy, and everybody was so accommodating, especially when we started in the podcast. It was the first week of lockdown.
Oh wow, okay.
And that was before, like, okay, yes, Zoom is so commonplace now, but it was the logistics. I was so pleased that I had we were all like working as a team and saying, "Right, guys, how do we get this out there?" And now it's a lot easier, but even just back and forth, like questions and scripts, and it was. Everything's more streamlined. So yeah, I love other Scottish crime writers. I've got a real soft spot for
that genre of writing. Do you think when you're a writer like yourself, Theresa, that you would ever kind of push into a different genre, or do you think that you've got your genre and that's where you live?
Well, funny you should say that. My next book is it's not quite crime. A crime has been committed.
Okay.
It's more a psychological thriller. I'd love to do black comedy.
Okay.
What I say black comedy is because when I start out, it's because I used to be a comedy writer with the BBC as well. So when I started, just the odd wee thing here and there. When I start writing, someone always dies on page 2, and I'm like, "Oh no, and then I thought, right, I'll write romantic fiction, or I hate the chick lit sounds, slice of life,
Yes.
Chick lit has been a derogatory term, and I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't think of another, but slice of life, really good women's fiction. And I'd love to do that. I really would, because I've got so many, things that I want to get out there. And again, someone always dies in the first chapter. I thought, oh God, stop killing people.
Well, do you know what? Maybe it's a
sorry, Helen Fitzgerald. She's another. It's just when I'm saying someone keeps dying in romantic fiction. Helen Fitzgerald. She's not afraid to write flawed female characters. So that I really, really like her. And she just lives around the corner. She's Australian, but she's in Glasgow, and she wrote The Cry. The BBC.
Oh yes. That was.
She's a very, very good writer and very brave.
Okay.
Get back. So yeah, I'd love to write romantic fiction. I'd love to write black comedy. But it takes me so long to write a book. It takes me a year, and then if I write a book and it takes a year, and then a publisher says, "Nah, we'll only take crime from you," you're like, "Oh God, that's a year." So
I know.
It's quite hard it's hard to kind of branch in. So I have a pen name that if I do romantic fiction or black comedy, it will be under a different name.
That's very clever. Very clever and so exciting. You'll need to make sure, please send me any information of upcoming books.
Oh, well, you'll be my early reader, Laura, now that you've kind of put yourself out there. I'll be sending you PDF copies saying, what do you think?
Please do, because the women in the book club have been saying how much they have loved these books as well.
Do you know what? I'm so flattered. And you guys, the Glasgow Girls Club anyway, because I used to advertise on a Monday and say, "Oh, I've got my books out and they're in the library." And that's another thing. Please use your local library. It's such a great resource. Yeah. You can download books. You can use them through BorrowBox. So even if you can get them on your Kindle, it's brilliant. Yeah. But you girls have been so supportive. Honestly, it's been amazing. Every time I post anything about my books, I get a huge response. It's just unbelievable.
It's so deserved though, and that's what what the community is there for. It's so good to support local talents, authors, local small businesses. I mean, that really has become at the forefront of people's
I've been so heartened. It's been great. I mean, we had a takeaway last night, and it was a chap who does it from his house. And I don't know whether he'd been a chef or I'm not sure what the setup was. And oh my goodness, the food was amazing. And I just love his initiative. He's doing this from his house, and it was brilliant. It was just real proper Indian home cooking, and oh, it was delicious. And so many people as well, I think, are just trying to shop locally and really help local businesses. And but it is through that support. And what I've noticed on the group as well is people are saying, I need business cards. Any girls out there doing that? I need, they'll put a shout out. I'd rather use someone locally, and I'm just so heartened. And keep going, because some people break away, and there's always things you need. You'll just, but if you even if you have like 50% or 10% or 5% you shop locally that you hadn't done before,
it makes a difference, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, my books are only available on Amazon, but I'm a local author. It's the way my publisher works.
But it's still supporting you as the local author.
Aye, but they're also available in the library, so please use the library. Do you know, someone's just walked past the window with a balaclava on. Do you remember balaclavas?
Well, that shows the extent of the coldness outside.
And it's April, and the sun's splitting the trees. -2 out there. I've just looked. I'm sitting right at my front window, and I thought, I haven't seen a balaclava since 1973.
Yeah, no, only in Glasgow, though. Only in Glasgow. Right. Okay. So, Theresa, you have also interviewed some like big stars, like Graham Norton, because you do like big interviews.
Oh, he was brilliant. I'm really lucky. I get a lot of gigs like that because I worked at, or I don't get them through the BBC, but because I'm a journalist, and also an author. So because I've done the book club, the book festival circuit, I write, Scotland and Tidelines and loads of things. So you get to know people. So then when they have events and the other authors need interviewed, I'm usually wheeled in, or wheeling lots of people. But I was lucky enough to get Graham Norton. But I saw he was coming to Glasgow, and I pitched. I says, look, if you don't have anyone to interview him, I'm putting my hat in the ring. And that's the first time I've ever done that. I thought, and okay. Bob McGiffert, who's the director of I Write, because it was a breakaway event for I Write. Graham was, oh my goodness. Well, first of all, we got his, I don't know if it was his agent or his publicist or whatever. So I had the big list of instructions, and it was in the Royal Concert Hall. That little dressing room, it was brilliant. Oh, somewhere to put my bag. I hadn't to approach him beforehand. I hadn't to speak to him beforehand. He needed 2 bottles of, I think it was Chablis or something on the back. So there was all these instructions, and I thought, oh, right. So he comes in, and I was on the stage doing a sound check, and he came in, and famous people look famous, because they get real clothes, they get, they just always look really good. And I thought, oh, I want to speak to him. So when he came on the stage for his sound check, what I thought was lovely was he came right up and said, I'm Graham, you must be Theresa, I'm so pleased to meet you. And I thought that was really, it was a lovely touch. It was really nice. So chat. And I said, oh, look, I've not to, approach you. And he said, what? And I said, I've not to approach you beforehand. He said, who said that? And I said, well, I've got a big list of instructions. He said, eh? And it just shows then that publicists will probably just have this thing that they cut and paste. So when we walked back behind, because we had like another half hour before the doors opened, and he was going into his changing room, he said, are you coming in? And I said, oh no, I've not to come into your room. He went, what?
Oh my goodness.
He was looking around as if, what are you talking about? And I said, I'm so sorry. And I said, but now I don't have time because I need to go and put my makeup on. And had I known that, they'd been all suited and booted and sitting in his dressing room, and there was 2 bottles of Chablis on his table, and he went, oh, someone's left wine for me. And I said, well, we were told.
That was like on your runner or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that was it. And he said, oh, my favourite. it. And I just thought, this is hilarious. But then he started, when we were in, and I have to tell you, he absolutely put me at ease. He was brilliant. It was like, I know it's 1,000 people. That was one of the biggest things I've done. And he was brilliant. It was so good. And we started talking about when he'd interviewed Mariah Carey and different people, and he started talking about the runner. I'd forgotten the name of it. And, suddenly, she wanted a separate, room for her mobile phone. He said, but it probably wasn't her, it was probably her publicist. So, but no one knew the conversation that we just had. He said that, you go, do you want a room for your mobile phone? You go, yeah, okay. And maybe someone had said, fancy 2 bottles of champagne? Yeah. That. Or, do you need to talk to the interviewer beforehand? He probably said, no, I'll be okay. And that was put down. So it's weird to have these preconceived ideas, and then you read in the press, such and such demanded 24 puppies in a basket, and there's all these things. Did they really? Or because if I was saying to you, or chance a cocktail, you go, oh yeah, that sounds quite nice. And how about some nice freshly prepared Thai food? Oh, I quite like that. And then before you know it, Laura has demanded cocktails and chef, and so. But Graham, no, sorry, excuse my. I'm vaccinated. I'm well up there. No, I don't think it can come through Zoom.
That is so good, though. I'm so pleased that we're moving forward with these vaccinations. But
Graham was lovely, and at the end he said, "Thank you so much for making that easy for me." I said, "I'm sure you don't need my help to make it easy for you." But again, it was just that nice acknowledgement. Yeah. One thing he did say that was really, I said to him, "What's changed, since you started doing your show on Channel 4 moons ago?"
Yep.
I said, "We used to be in production meetings, we'd all be chipping in."
Yeah.
And it was great. He said, now when I speak, I'm not telling tales out of school, he said this on stage. Yep. Now when I speak, everyone's silent. He said, that's really weird. He said, I'm not used, everyone's silent, they're all listening. And he said, that's something I noticed. And again, that was astute of him to notice that happens. And the trouble with, I think people kind of lose touch with reality, and the more famous you get. Do you ever read authors' books and authors that you love? And the more famous they get, their books get thicker and thicker. And what that is, their editors don't want to come back. If they're selling like 5 million copies, the editor's thinking, right, shit, I've got 2 things going on here. A, they're already selling shed loads, so should I put my tuppence worth in? And then, I might spoil it, so I'll just let them do their thing. And B, oh my God, they're earning this company like 50 million a year. Do I really want to upset them by going, do you really need that chapter? So the more famous authors of books are like this.
That is true. So true. Very, very good observation. I'm going to look out for that in future as well. Amazing. Right. Okay. So
notice my books are that thin. My editors have no trouble coming back.
Oh no, your books are perfect length, I have to say. Absolute perfect length. Right. Okay, Theresa. So you also host creative writing workshops and presentation skill workshop, is that right?
Well, I do. I do the writing workshops. Stopped because of
because of everything. Yeah.
I might get back. I did that with Douglas Skelton, the chap that I was telling you about. And I've cut my fringe, and it's too short. It's in my eyes. I do skills presentation that I can teach people how to chat and Zoom and things. And anyone watching, don't do that with your hair all the time with me. Don't cut your fringe 2 minutes before you come on. It'll just go.
I actually do that all the time. See, because I've not had in a long
time. So it's skills presentation, and it's really just to teach people if they're giving a speech but that is just, it's something I offer. I don't really, it's not a mainstay of mine, and I end up doing it for nothing because oh my God, I've got my daughter's wedding speech 3 weeks time. I'm like, oh, don't worry, and then I just give them a few top tips. So
well, honestly, I think because media training is something that I was going to look into, so I think it's like a really, really like important thing to offer people, because now, especially with things like Zoom, everyone's having to kind of put themselves out there more, and so that.
Well, I used to do media training with a company called the Broadcasting Business. It's now called Elephant Productions, and it was Bill McFarlane, who used to be a broadcaster many years ago, and his lovely wife, I'm sure she's on this group, and I did a lot of freelance work with Bill, and so, you know, I've done quite a lot, but that's all incorporated into journalism.
Yes.
Well. But journalism has changed so much. You know, when I was a journalist, and when I worked at the BBC, or when I worked for Radio Clyde and things, there were certain things you were and weren't allowed to do. There were certain things you were allowed to broadcast, certain things you weren't legally. And now, because of social media, and it's great that people access their news through different channels and different mediums, that the lines are being blurred. But what I would say, if you know, any stories that you see, there's a lot of clickbait just now.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, one story I saw, in fact, it was a BBC, and I was absolutely disgusted. And it was doctor claims that patients are refusing the foreign vaccine and demanding the Oxford vaccine. So this was, somebody put it on their timeline saying, this is terrible. This is, you know, Brexit gone mad. We're so xenophobic, and how can we hate foreigners so much? I'm disgusted with this country. So I opened it and I read the article, and it was all about different things to do with COVID.
Yeah.
At the very bottom, it was one unnamed GP talking about one unnamed patient, saying, oh, one patient phoned me, but the GP wasn't named. And how do you know the GP hasn't just been bigging up his part? I mean, doctors do things, you know, they're not, you know, almighty. And I'd said to the guy, I said, this is clickbait. So the chap, a friend of mine, I said, read that article. And in my day, an editor would never have let that head go.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that. So we're always quick to jump on and go, oh, that's awful. Read the story.
Yes.
It's not just clickbait, and don't, and again, there was something on the Andrew Marr show the other day, last Sunday, I think it was, and there was someone talking about the word picnic.
Okay.
It was derived from going to see lynchings of Black community and people in the deep south in the 30s and 40s, and how disgusting, and people would bring food because it would be like a social event. And I won't say where Pick and Nick came from, but anyway, it was to pick your food. And
oh no.
This was put on, and you know, someone said, oh, I'd just seen this in the Andrew Marr show, how disgusting. And you know, the barrage, quite rightly. And I said, no, the word picnic came from 17th century France. It's like pique, unique, and I don't know how to pronounce it. It's 2 words, it was always hyphenated. I'm not saying the terrible things didn't happen.
Yeah.
They absolutely did, and people treated them as days out. It was awful.
Yeah.
But that's not where the word picnic came from. So when you see awful things like that, research it. Well, I've always known where the word picnic came from because I had a really, really old primary teacher. But research it. Don't just, because we get our news now from so many different sources. Years ago, the news would be on the television once a day, maybe twice a day, but there's no checks and balances now. So, you know, if instead of just being outraged at something, do a fact check. It takes 2 minutes on Google, and it makes you a more balanced person as well, because you can imagine how then that would become truth. That things would suddenly say, oh, do you know that, you know, patients are demanding the English vaccine? Well, are they? What in a surgery out of 60 million people, you know? So don't be afraid to question things. And that goes for BBC and mainstream media. Question things. And people are, you know, quite rightly, you know, very down on mainstream media just now. But what's the alternative? Is the alternative always the truth? Do we always get the truth from social media? So whatever your sources, research, fact check, always double check. It's just too easy. And social media, all media almost becomes like an echo chamber. Yes. Just fed the things that you want to see. And I mean, just now, because I'm on a lot of florist site, every single thing that's on my page is about flowers. Yes. And I said to my husband, I said, oh, Jez, you notice that, you know, you just see loads and loads of people becoming florists now? And he said, no. You know, and I just assumed everyone had become a florist overnight. And I'm like, it's all over Facebook. And he's going,
not on my Facebook.
But I noticed a lot of people are buying new bikes. So just check everything. So
That's a really good tip, because it is easy to take things as gospel, and social media is a powerful platform. Sometimes when people do see a headline, they just take it as, and then they pass it on.
But mainstream media, as I say, that the one about the vaccine I saw, and it was on the BBC, and I was disgusted. I thought, that's awful, and in my day, an editor would never have let that.
No.
But we're all under the pressure and under the cosh of clickbait, how many hits. So if it was just something like, there's a good uptake of vaccine, people might not click on it. So
well, that's it. I know it's almost like geared to be shocking, isn't it?
Aye, but do fact check everything. And I know it sounds a bit, that's the journalist in me coming out. Check, double check.
It is advice.
Aye, and because you can actually become quite depressed as well by thinking that's what the world is like. You think, no, there's lovely things happening out there. So just don't take everything at face value.
Absolutely. So Theresa, this has been such a great chat. But before we go, can you tell us a wee bit about your beautiful business? Because as I mentioned at the start, you post in the GGC, the blooms that you post are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
A wee bit more about that, because underneath this interview, which is in our book club group, and it'll also go in the media hub for members, I'll post links to like your business, your podcast, for anyone.
That's so nice. I just love this group. This group is just brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
I'd lost all my, and I'm quite open about this, I'd lost all my broadcasting work. I worked for the BBC for 20 years, but I was always freelance. Now that suited me because, and I never wanted to be staff because I don't like working Sundays, and but there's things I wanted to do, and things like the Graham Norton interview, I would have had to ask permission. There's publishing books, you've got to get permission because you're a BBC staff member, and there was all sorts of reasons, and I like making my own hours and things, but I'd worked there for 20 years and loved it, really enjoyed it. However, COVID came along. I did latterly at the BBC, I did the traffic and travel, so there was no travel because that had all stopped.
Yep.
I changed the way the travel department works, so now the presenters present the travel. So the first people to go were freelancers. Now that's not to say I'll never go back, it was just the way it worked out. So there was no work. And because I was freelance but pay as you earn, it was a weird thing. I was kind of caught in the middle. So I had no furlough, no government help, because I was treated as employed, but I wasn't furloughed. It was very confusing because I had no money at all. Now, I'm very, very lucky because I didn't lose anyone, and I had my health and my husband. So I'm not going to start pleading, it was terrible. But I knew money. Royalties from books, but libraries closed. Most of my book income came from events. Events closed, so I was like, what do I do? Lockdown was for 6 weeks. So 15 years ago or so, I trained as a garden designer, and I love gardening. I've always loved gardening. I went back to college and trained full time. I did a bit of gardening journalism as well, and I used to present a gardening program on the radio. So my husband said, why don't you go back to garden design? And I said, I can't. It's just a thought of, I hated drawing out plans, and I like to just go around people's houses and chat to them and pop, do that sort of thing. So I thought, well, what I actually like to do is just advising people what they should plant in their garden. So I put a shout out on Glasgow Girls saying, listen, if I came round to your garden for an hour, had a chat, just what you liked, what you didn't like, and then did follow-up mood boards and a plant list. Is that kind of like, would anyone be interested in that? And it was like, that's exactly what we need. And so I started off just to try it at a really kind of ridiculously low price. And I was so inundated, I had to I said, oh no, stop.
Yep.
And it took off. But I only do it 1 day a week, because every visit it generates, so it's an hour to visit, but it takes me 2 hours to do the mood boards and the plant list, because I'm very kind of pernickety, and so I do that 1 day a week. So obviously Christmas comes and gardening, things kind of dries up a bit. And again, I used to always make my big Christmas candles with my arrangements. I'm a trained gardener, but I'm a self-taught florist, but that's not to say I haven't trained in floristry. I do masterclasses with very good florists.
Okay.
I've been to college. I've got my gardening certificate, but not floristry certificates. I'll just put that out there. But I've trained with some very, very good florists. I work like 15 hours a day trying to, really work hard at this because it's a craft.
I can see from what you say.
I thought, right, I'll see if anyone would be interested in my Christmas candle arrangements, but I was so slow at doing them because, very good experienced florists can do it like that. But I was like, oh, well, I put that there. So I took a few on and was very successful. And then someone said, would you, be doing more flowers? So again, I thought, right, let me see. So I worked Zoom with another few florists, and there's a brilliant florist called Pretty Little Petals. Her name's Lauren Sykes. She's on this group.
Yep.
Has been so supportive. She's only two miles up the road, a few minutes up the road from me. So we're targeting the same audience, the same client base. Yep. She could easily say to me, bugger off, I'm not having any competition. No, I'm not saying I'm her competition.
No, I don't know, but I know what you're saying. Some people are really
She's been brilliant. When lockdown eased like that, I was allowed to go up and I spent a few hours with her. She's always at the end of the phone or the messenger. I'm going to spend more time with her. So she showed me the ropes about being a studio florist. So I really do want to give a good shout out to her. She's been really good. Because when you start a studio-based florist, you work from home, or I've got a studio and I'm getting a studio built at the side of the house.
Brilliant.
How do you get customers? How do you get clients?
Yeah.
Flowers, how do people know I'm here? And it was a case of, it's a bit like the kind of Kevin Costner movie, build it and they'll come.
Field of Dreams.
Right. So the first time I bought so many flowers, oh my God, I could have, stopped Tesco. And so again, that's what I would say to Lauren, how do I know what to order? So she's been really good and pointed me in a few directions. And I went to the flower market and other wholesalers, and I was saying, right, I'm the new girl. And I was completely open with people. I was like, right, I'm the new girl. What do I do here? At the flower market were saying, right, hen, welcome out the road, So, but what my ambition is to also work with local flower farms. There's local flower farms that do a great job, but they're only operate between April and October.
Okay.
And use local blooms, but that's a difficult thing because they don't last as long because they've not got the same preservatives and things. So kind of striking a balance between giving clients really good value for money, doing things that are a bit different. My blooms are very rustic. My arrangements are very rustic. Drilling for posh, don't come to me. Very, very rustic. And so it's trying to give clients value for money, but also be eco-friendly and support other local businesses. And that's a balance because flowers are a real luxury. So, if somebody's spending 30, 40, 50 quid on flowers or even £15, if they get really posy, they don't want them to die in 2 days' time. So you've got to be very careful. But every flower that I buy from the wholesaler, I test it as well in my main room with a wood burning stove. I don't know what I'm going to do in the summer. And if it can withstand the wood burning stove test, right? That's a good supplier. So yes, I just love working with flowers. But it's taken up so much of my time. I go down wormholes of, and there's a guy down in London. He's a brilliant florist, and I'm saving up to have a masterclass with him because obviously I'll need to fly down and things. So that's going to be my holiday this year. One day with this. In fact, that's probably going to be my holiday, quota money-wise for the next 5 years.
Oh,
I want to spend a day with him.
Amazing. It'll be worth that. That's amazing.
So,
oh, brilliant. Well, I am going to, as I said, I'm going to put links to everything below this chat.
Oh, Laura, thank you. You've just been an absolute star.
It's just been honestly so lovely chatting to you. Please keep us all in the know about your upcoming books as well, Theresa, because they will definitely be getting covered.
Oh, I will. And I tell you, my next book that hopefully will be out in a year or so, but everything's been put back.
Yeah.
I've already had someone say, she's not that likeable a character. Can you soften her up? And I'm like, oh God, no, not again. You know?
Oh,
But I'm going to stick to my guns.
yes.
I don't think you have to write likeable characters. You have to write interesting characters. Not every character can be likeable.
No.
You might have a best friend that you think is great, and somebody else will go, oh, no, not my cup of tea. So also, any writers out there, try and stick to your guns. Make your characters interesting. I have a nice edge to them, but don't feel under pressure, and you will be under pressure if you're writing female characters to make them likeable. I'm sticking by my guns. So I might be self-publishing the next one, I'll let you know.
Oh, amazing. No, 100%, because like that is what I say all the time. Like you could have someone who is squeaky clean angel who does everything for charity, and you'll have the people that are like, look at that arsehole do-gooder, and you're like, this book no one can read. So
that's right, because people aren't nobody's perfect, and
nobody.
And I think it's nice to have, like, I mean, look at that. Is it Killing Eve?
Yes.
You know, she's not likeable. Fleabag. You're like, oh, you know, it's. I think it's time, and even, you know, going back to like Scarlett O'Hara. I know that book.
Yeah.
You know, the film's getting banned because of the racial elements. But Scarlett O'Hara wasn't very nice. But I'll tell you, she was really interesting.
Yes. Exactly.
And like when you go, so I don't know, and sorry, Laura, I know I'm way over my time here.
Oh,
I watched loads and loads. I was a real movie buff. I loved all my old movies, all my 30s and 40s. Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck.
yes.
And there was a real femme fatale. There was a brilliant, you know, these really, really strong female characters that were not likeable, but they were so interesting, and you were just addicted to them. Something happened along the line, and then we started getting fed these lovely, joyful, I've done that wrong again, you know. And you're like, oh God, okay, I get it. And that's fine for some people, but I want these strong female characters back.
Yes.
And you know, and it's not a new thing, and it's as I say, you know, they've been around for decades, for centuries.
Yeah.
We kind of lost it a bit in the kind of Playboy era of the 70s. It was a bit pneumatic, and all the lovely girl characters were all like, I'll get your drink, Mr.
Oh.
You know, and whereas Bette Davis would have said, oh fuck, sorry, I'm not doing that. You know, when you see, and Bette Davis was not a classically beautiful, you know, what we would see of, you know, Hollywood beauty, but bloody hell, she was great.
Yes, she was.
Some of her characters were, you know, crikey, and Barbara Stanwyck. She, you know, if you ever watch a movie called Stella, but the original with Barbara Stanwyck.
Okay, I'm going to watch that.
I think they've made a remake with Bette Midler, and I haven't seen the remakes. I can't comment on it, but the Barbara Stanwyck, it's good. She's good. So there's loads of old movies. So yeah, let's not be under pressure to have our female characters all squeaky clean, because it's like, oh, we'll identify with them. Well, I can identify with them.
Yes, 100%. I can 100% identify with Una. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, that's good. That's great. I'm so glad.
Got a wee comment here from
yes,
Roz Bonner.
Oh, I love Roz. Roz
Yes,
went to a photo shoot. Roz is a brilliant photographer. So
Roz is lovely. So she had messaged to say she was like excited for this, and you know, she loves your books and everything. And she says that there's a wee story with you too. She said your flowers are stunning. She got a candle arrangement at Christmas, and she wants another one for her studio when it opens back up.
Oh, how lovely. Oh, Roz is just absolutely lovely. So I'm going to get a photo shoot, because I need some proper professional photographs. Anyone that knows me, when I take pictures of my flowers, I'm doing myself no favours, or the flowers no favours. Heads cut off and things. My niece comes and helps me. But I'm going to get a lovely, I'm treating myself. It's an investment in my business, and I'm treating myself to a photo shoot with Roz. And it's photographs from my website, and
yes,
well, it's money well spent. And then
absolutely,
just having that. So, because I said to Roz, right, you know, we're thinking, right, once lockdown eases, no, once I can get my hair sorted. Although I I got my colour done last week, so
your hair's lovely, and I'm
thank
actually
you,
hairless,
thank you.
I'm still waiting till the end of the month, but that's okay. We've gone this long, it's fine. Theresa, thank you so much for taking the time. I've absolutely loved talking to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks everyone for your support and for taking the time to listen to me rabbiting on here about God knows what.
Not at all. It's been actually so
I've talked about it, but I've done it for over an hour. So.
It's been fab. Honestly, I've absolutely loved it. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop this live stream.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for watching and watching on replay as well.